If you're watching this the day it officially goes public, happy Christmas! I hope you're having a delightful day if you're celebrating, but if you're like me, the chances are the prospect of large numbers of people milling around, chosen family, or otherwise, is enough to make you want to take refuge somewhere a little quieter, somewhere you can focus on something other than the day's lauded traditions. So if you are a bit of an introvert, a bit of a nerd, or a bit of a crafty sort, I'm going to give you a little show and tell detailing some of my latest integrations in my quest to unify my home automation system with my electric vehicles. I want to be clear that there is absolutely nothing wrong with most holiday traditions if you are somebody, that is, who actively enjoys said holiday traditions. But I also know that after years on this earth, that there's also something to be said for being able to self-regulate when you need to, especially if, like me, you're not really big on holidays, and while you might intellectually get it, don't really understand why we just can't be nicer to each other every single day of the year. Anyway, if this sounds like your idea of fun, pull up a chair, your favourite beverage, and let's get on with it. But please do make sure you do spend some time with the quote-unquote normies too, eh? As you might have figured out, I love home automation. I always have. The idea of getting things that I own talking to each other so that they can work a little more seamlessly is something that I've always enjoyed. And in fact, I've been tinkering with electronics and computers for many years, even though I didn't actually get my first computer until 1998. And that was a busted old Commodore C64 I picked up for £10 sterling from a local newspaper ad. Today, I'm going to show you some of the things I've done using several off-the-shelf components, open-sourced software, and the telematics services provided by various EV companies. Because it's highly unlikely that you all actually have the same setup as me, I'm not going to get too into the weeds here, but I have shared some of my anonymized configuration files as a starting point for your own adventure in the down below. And please do bear in mind that this isn't a tutorial per se, because of the complexity of everything I've done thus far. It would have taken far longer to explain than a single video. But I hope that this is inspiration to encourage you to play around too. And for those worried about telematics security, or indeed home security, it is worth noting that Home Assistant, as I'll explain in a moment, runs on hardware inside your home, and the only thing you absolutely need to connect to the internet for, after you've installed everything, is the telematics from your EV. Before we get too in-depth though, let's remind ourselves about Home Assistant. It's an open source project spearheaded by a company called HACS, and it runs on everything from a Raspberry Pi single board computer through to a full-blown server sitting in someone's closet. In my case, I'm running Home Assistant inside a virtual machine that's running on our family media server next door, which itself is running unraid. To make full use of the power of Home Assistant, you're going to need to either have a full Home Assistant install or potentially buy one of those special Home Assistant hardware options like Home Assistant Yellow that HACS sells on its website. At this point, if your eyes start to glaze over, don't worry. If you want a video explaining Home Assistant from zero to hero, I've left some links in the down below to some great videos to get you going. At this point in the video, I need to assume you've got some basic knowledge of Home Assistant, and you've got at least a basic setup running somewhere in your home, and you know what YAML is. And if you want to know what YAML actually stands for, well, this is a bit embarrassing because there are two possible definitions. One is yet another markup language, while the other is a little more tongue-in-cheek and, quite frankly, recursive. YAML ain't markup language, which is, of course, very nerd humour. Assuming you've got this far, you'll need to install HACS, or the Home Assistant Community Store. Again, I'll link to it below. HACS is an add-on for Home Assistant that allows you to pull in all kinds of extra features into your system, and most of the EV telematics integrations available for Home Assistant are actually installed using HACS. Head to the Home Assistant Community Store and search for your EV's manufacturer to add the relevant integration. It's usually as easy as a few mouse clicks, and most integrations have simple instructions that you can follow to get things working. At this point, I should probably note that there are some caveats here. First, most of the integrations are built by third-party enthusiasts, and while some are really well polished, some are a little less so. Second, while most integrations are pretty straightforward to install, some, like the one I actually use for my Chevrolet Bolt EV, require a little extra software or hardware knowledge, and in the case of the service I use, even requires extra services running alongside Home Assistant or on a separate server somewhere else in your home. That, mercifully though, is frankly pretty rare. Third, while the average enthusiast using these integrations isn't going to get their accounts locked by the automaker in question, I have heard some horror stories about people abusing the services and getting locked out, and automakers do have a tendency to just change things seemingly without notice and on a whim, which can break the integrations for a few days, a few weeks, or even longer, while the developers of said integrations ultimately catch up. Once you've found your integration and have everything set up in Home Assistant, you'll have what's known as the device. That's the name of the thing you're bringing in data from, and then within the device you have a whole load of entities, things that specify particular things about the device. In the case of an EV, entities will be things like its state of charge, if its doors are locked, or if it's currently charging. Again, each integration is different, and so I'm not going to drill down too much at this point. The default dashboard or display built by Home Assistant isn't exactly pretty, but we're actually going to dig a little deeper here and discover something called picture elements cards. They allow you to display information over the top of an image, and in the case of my custom card that you're seeing on screen right now, I've added an over-the-top image of a Ford F-150, which of course is the correct colour for my truck. I'm showing you the bare YAML language on screen right now, and it shows the various elements I'm using to position various things in the picture, like the text elements showing if the doors are open or closed. Again though, as I noted earlier, if you're even vaguely into programming, you'll note that I've got some conditional logic to decide exactly what to show on screen and when. But before I explain what's going on there, I need to take a little right turn into the weeds to talk about the forward past integration I'm using for my truck. It doesn't make all of the data you might want to use in a Home Assistant display readily available for something like the picture card, and so you may have to do what I've done and create custom sensors within Home Assistant's main sensor YAML file to extract the relevant data and then present it to the picture card element in a way it can use. And again, I'm sorry if this is a little glossy eye-inducing, but I've got Studio Code Server running on my Home Assistant instant, which allows me to very easily edit my sensor YAML file and add in all kinds of custom sensors, like this one here, that allows me to output the status of the charging station by pulling the attribute charging status out of the sensor.forwardpass_LV charging sensor. I'm really sorry at this point if you're not nerdy and you're watching this, thank you anyway, but please know that it is okay just to completely skip this video and normal service will resume shortly. Just please don't unsubscribe just because of this video. I know someone will. With all of these custom cards created, again, please refer to the linked files in the down below, you'll see that I can then pass the relevant information to my Home Assistant picture card, which then displays on screen what I want, where I want it to be. Right now, the alignment is frankly still a little off, and this is a very much work in progress, so please don't be too harsh with me. And the logic I've used in both the sensor.yaml file as well as the card YAML file allows me to determine what colour things are when. For example, the temperature outside, measured from my truck's onboard temperature sensor, will change the colour of the thermometer icon based on how hot or cold it is outside. I know it's really nerdy, but that's basically this video, isn't it? But what about all that other stuff you're displaying on screen, I hear you ask? And the answer to that is that there are a couple of extra integrations that really add some spice to this and move it up a notch. One is a custom text card that will display particular phrases based on the particular state of a particular sensor. This is because I didn't want my card displaying "charging" in all caps, so opted to replace it with something a little more pleasant on the eye. You'll also note from my various screenshots that the system also seems to know when the truck is charging and exactly how much power is going into it, not to mention how much power is coming out of it when the truck is running Ford's vehicle-to-home mode. Yes, the Ford Home integration system is finally working! Ford updated the mobile app recently, and mysteriously the truck also got a couple of over-the-air software updates, and now I don't have to park cattywampus anymore from the charging station to actually get it to work. I've tested it 3 times and it's been super reliable. And yes, I will make a video about it in the new year. But shh, be very, very quiet. We don't want to scare the wascally watcher into not working again. My particular home setup, and the reason I can detect exactly how much power is going into and out of the charging station, is thanks to a little product called the Emporia View 2. It's a home energy monitoring system that you install in your breaker box or fuse box, and it consists of a hardware unit and then a load of different current clamps that go around the various power lines that you want to measure power as they pass through. As it happens, and if you're a home automation enthusiast, you probably already know this, the Emporia View 2 is built on a little microprocessor called the ESP32. It is frankly one of the most popular low-cost microprocessors being made today and can be found in a whole load of different things on sale. And the most important thing here is that the ESP32 chipset can be quite easily reprogrammed. Why is this important? Well, the stock Emporia View 2 that you get arriving in the mail requires you to sign up to Emporia's home energy monitoring service. It also requires that data from your home's electrical consumption goes out to the internet to the company's servers. But with a little bit of clever screwdriver use, some judicious soldering, and a quick reflash with ESPHome, don't worry, I'll link to some videos discussing it in the down below, as well as the software, you can run an energy monitoring system within your home that lives exclusively on your network and won't share your data with anyone you don't want it shared with. What you're seeing right now is the 2 Emporia views that I've got installed in our electrical panel. I need 2, partly because the Ford Charge Station Pro that we use to charge the truck up needs a special larger current clamp that's normally reserved for mains power coming into the home, and the second reason is that we have many circuits in the home. I'm not going to go into how we set this up here because that in of itself would be an entirely different video, but if you are so inclined, take a look at the linked files and you'll see that I pull in various data from my Emporia View 2s as well as data from my solar panels and our span panel. Yeah, this, I'm sorry, is pretty complicated. We have a 2-panel system at home. The truck takes its power from the main breaker panel outside while it feeds power back to the main breaker in our garage, which is normally used to provide power to the majority of things in our home. The other EV charging stations we have several, and other non-essential things like our oven and our dryer go through the span panel, which, in case you didn't know, is also a smart device that records energy going into and out of it, as well as offers smart breakers that you can turn on and off remotely. Originally, the span system was meant to be connected to the Ford Home integration system so that we could load manage in a power cut, but the two didn't like each other very much, and for now, it's on its own, separate, unloved circuit. Just as I pulled various information out of the F-150 Lightning integration using custom sensors, so too have I created custom sensors for the various power consumption going into my home. For example, I have one that takes all of the power being measured at various points in the home, adds it together, and then subtracts whatever my solar panels say is being generated. Again, I will share the anonymized details of my setup, where I've had to create various sensors to enable me to properly use the excellent PowerFlow Plus card. Again, also available through HACS. So far, I've explained in a fairly high level and probably slightly chaotic way how I've used Home Assistant, a third-party forward pass integration, and the Emporia View 2 running ESPHome to calculate where power is flowing and what it's doing. But what happens next? What's next for me is using NS panels, like the one you're seeing on screen right now, to create mini information screens in some of the rooms in my home. The NS panel, made by Sonoff, is a little $50 replacement for a conventional light switch that offers 2 relays and 2 switches that can also control regular lighting circuits or plug circuits. But it also happens to have a touchscreen display that you can interact with. Like the Emporia View 2, it's built around an ESP32 microcontroller, and yes, you've guessed it, some enterprising folks have figured out how to remove the stock software and put ESP32 Home on it. That, again, means the panel doesn't call anywhere outside of your network, doesn't share any information with people you don't want it to, and it can be configured to display just the right information you want on it, like, I don't know, the range of my truck and car at a glance, as well as the current energy being generated on the roof of my home. It will also even let you send commands to other things if you configure it correctly. A good example would be to leave a button on the screen so you can press it to send a command to your EV so it starts preconditioning before you leave on a cold winter morning, or cool the car down on a hot summer afternoon. People who have watched previous videos on my home automation setup might know that I've already created scripts that turn on the vehicles when it's below a certain temperature outside, and I know I'm heading out, but those are actually currently turned off because I don't want to waste energy unnecessarily. My goal long term is to build a script that checks my family's calendar and makes a judgment call based on what it sees there and where we are and where we need to be, but that's something for the future. If you're not a Home Assistant user yet, but this has piqued your interest, I urge you to give it a go. The home automation and specifically Home Assistant community is for the most part incredibly supportive and wonderful, and someone somewhere is always coming up with a new solution for a problem. Just last week, in fact, I installed a new integration into my home automation system so that at 7:50 a.m. every weekday, the Transport Evolved server turns itself on, ready for the workday. Prior to this, we'd been running the servers 24/7, which was resulting in about 50 to 60 kilowatt hours of energy consumption per day. Changing how we run various maintenance tasks, like postponing ZFS scrubs until the weekend and turning the servers off for 12 hours a day during the week, has dramatically already reduced our electricity bill. But running this automation also means I don't have to worry about turning the servers back on before team members either arrive at the house to work or log into our VPN every day remotely, because the server's already up and ready when they need it. So there you have it, a little nerdiness from me, and I hope you have some inspiration to get your own EV to home automation system running. Thanks for watching, and of course, I wish you a wonderful day for those of you who are celebrating. Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them below in our Discord chat room, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube. They help cover our bills, pay our team, and make sure that we can be 100% independent. If you'd like to join them, and of course see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as just $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just under $11 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: Nathan Plowman, Hanno, Bender, Estelle, and Sarah J. Goodfriend. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations. And we even have a good old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at. The address is linked to below. And if you're in need of some swag, you should also check out our swag store in the down below too. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget, we make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we think that this one is also worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving!